IVM.
Before we begin, here's a quick announcement. Design Up Conference is back with the energy, the inspiration, and the excitement for the sixth year. 25 speakers over 2 days, 8 unconference events, and endless networking on 17th and 18th of September in Namma, Bangalore. Be there, check out the buzz, the speakers, register now on 2022.designup.io. This is Audiogyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. This Audiogyan is in association with the Drawing Board. The Drawing Board is an international architecture platform based in India where students can test their understanding and skills in shaping the ways communities live and thrive while preserving local heritage. The Drawing Board has been actively running architecture competition for undergraduate students since 2016. It was conceptualized by Mindspace Architects and Rohan Builders. This year, they are back in action with a live event. Architecture undergrad students can submit their project ideas on the theme of designing a memorial for Charles Correa. Last date to submit your concepts is 1st October 2022. More details in show notes and the drawingboard.in. Today we have one of the jury members with us on Audiogyan, architect Sachin Agashikar. Sachin studied architecture from JJ and was awarded gold medal in 1991 for his final year design thesis. Before setting up his own practice in 1999, he worked with architect Charles Correa for 8 years and worked as an associate on the Cancer Research Centre in Lisbon, R&D Centre for Mahindra Mahindra, and extension to Kala Academy and IUCAA. Today we'll try and document some of his thoughts on art of seeing, how these sort of legendary people zoom in, zoom out, to envision the micro and the macro details together, and can possibly help students to present their ideas while they design the Charles Correa Memorial at the drawing board competition. So thank you, Sachin, for giving your time. It's a real honor to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Kedar. It's nice to be here.
Superb. So as I said, I just wanted to understand and document some of your thoughts and ideologies around art of seeing, and I've come up with few questions. And yeah, as before the conversation, I said, just feel free to share as much as you can about what is this art of seeing. I mean, it's it's a very cliche word also, but yeah, we'll try and explore how can one learn to see also. And this I picked up from one of your articles and couple of videos, the short films that you made. So it's all inspired from there. So I'll start off with the basic one is that observation, according to me at least, because I'm a designer, so observation is one essential quality a designer needs to develop or maybe has developed over time. Can we start by saying why do you think so? Because it must be helping the designer somewhere. So how does it help and why it's so important?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's really important what you asked, because the best example I can think of to answer your first question is of a child. You must have noticed that, children pick up quite fast from the day they are born. I mean, they start recognizing their mother, they pick up words, they respond to sound, they even learn to manipulate and they know when to throw a tantrum. I mean, I learned this when my daughter was born. So what is interesting or rather amusing is that, they are observing all the time. Now imagine everything is new for them. So I wonder what must be going on in their mind, when they see things for the first time. I mean, imagine what they're seeing a dog for the first time. What must they be thinking? We should actually find out that what's going on in their mind. And by the time they are 5, they can speak a couple of languages. They can read, they can write, they can even add and or subtract, which is amazing. Unfortunately, as we grow older, we just take things for granted and we stop observing. And I think that is the moment when we actually slow down. And on top of that, we have all this Google and Pinterest and all those things. I mean, they make us, really lazy, I would say. I mean, that's the worst thing that has happened to us. So there are a lot of advantages also. But yeah, but we stop observing. We're completely depending on the internet nowadays. But yeah, so architecture, I mean, I'm speaking specifically about architecture because I'm an architect. Architecture cannot be taught to us in these 5 years of college. It's a 5 year course, but they cannot teach us everything. What we learn is just the basics. So when we step out, the only option we have is to look around like a child and observe. And observation actually makes us think and ask questions. For example, I mean, uh, why do we get goosebumps when we actually see the pyramid? When you're standing in front of it, I mean, there's some feeling which we have. I mean, why does that happen? Why do we like those simple whitewashed houses in Greece? I mean, there is something nice about it. I mean, they're not designed by some great architects, but there is something which is quite appealing for us. And, you actually feel like going there or staying there. So I would say that observing and analyzing what you see or feel using all your senses, this is very important. Using all your senses is the only way to learn art or architecture. And there is so much to learn, that all you need to do is just walk around with your eyes and ears open and look around like a child. You'll learn a lot more than what you learned in college.
Very interesting. And also in your article you mentioned like self-taught architects like Le Corbusier or
Yeah.
Tadao Ando traveled
Yes.
more than a year,
Yes.
and in our sort of
Yeah.
world also in our country there were almost every saint who was like now revered and looked up to has almost walked the
Yeah.
entire India. So is there specific like what happens when you like observe? What happens? How does it translate into? Maybe give an example to explain ki you saw this and then obviously there's no direct translation, but it stays in your subconscious, or then it comes out in different ways when you're in that creative space. If you can give some insights
Yeah.
there.
Well, actually, the best example is you because you solved self-taught yourself, and you're doing so well in this field. But yeah, I mean, there are things which we observe all the time, and simple things, like um, maybe a tree in a courtyard, and maybe there's a bench below that. I mean, and you go and sit there on the bench, and you feel so nice to be under that shade. Maybe the tree is not very big; it's of a small size, and perhaps that experience, what you felt over there, I mean, remains with you. And then when you're actually designing, I mean, let's say then you design, let's say for example, a house, and when you say you have a courtyard in that uh, design, you will recall that, oh, that was a nice place I'd been to. I mean, there was a nice tree there and there was a bench there. Maybe somebody had just kept it. It was not a designer bench or something, but it was such a nice feeling sitting there and there was breeze flowing. Why not have the same tree and the similar bench or in a similar position? Maybe it was not in the center of the courtyard, maybe it was in the corner, but there was something nice, some energy which was created like that. Why not repeat it over here? Now, it was not such an important thing that I had to click a picture or something. It was something which I had to just experience there. So there are so many things happening in our lives, so many things which we see. Unfortunately, these cameras have again spoiled everything in your phone because you stop seeing and you think you will take pictures of every damn thing and you come back home and watch where half the things are not, worth watching. But when you're there, you don't see it because you have that camera which you think is a standby to click pictures. So I'm not pointing out to a very specific example, but let's say take this as an example, and I think it's the best thing you can do is remember. Obviously, you'll remember, but whenever you felt nice, being anywhere, just find out why is it that you felt nice and then remember that and bring it in your projects, bring it in the design, bring it in your buildings, and it'll sort of enhance your design much more.
Got it. But is there maybe, yeah, we can sort of get into the next question because that slightly goes deeper into it, that can this art of seeing be developed? I mean, with like the right mentorship or like right practice, right training, because it's tough, right? People want to see what they want to see,
Right.
so it's quite. I mean, it's how can one develop? And then I have a friend of mine. In fact, he is also from JJ, and he said the final year uh, at when he was there, the final year thesis or final year project was somebody drawing a portrait of someone, and you could see that the person is eating that khaini or something, and the portrait was exactly like that. You could see what's happening there. Now these are details, like you capture certain light, certain textures, and you try to replicate it. So, being a design student or not being a design student, can this sort of art of seeing be developed?
Yeah, I think so because s- um, when I mean, like I said before, you need to put yourself in a child's shoes. Also, now, I mean, let's take a hypothetical thing. I mean, if you do not have a camera with you and you have no internet connection, again and again, I'm stressing on that,
Yeah.
and you are absolutely helpless, and you go out. I mean, you will be much more sharper and vigilant, I mean, because you don't have those your phone and your camera and internet and all that to save you. Now, as soon as you are out and, you have to survive, you start thinking and you start analyzing. And that is the time you start seeing things which you have never noticed before, and it all happens naturally as a brain, I think is programmed for it. I mean, it's basically natural instinct that you start seeing things, and all these other things are quite a distraction as of now. So uh, it is very, very important that uh, do not get distracted with all these other things, and just go out there with an open mind, and ultimately you will pick up things which will help you in the long run. I mean, whether it's designing or this art, and you will be able to see it. Now, what actually helps you in seeing these things are probably, there are probably many methods, but one of the methods which actually I realized during the lockdown and before that, when I started making these videos on my camera, it was just for fun. Nothing great. I'm not some great photographer or something, but I thought, okay, I mean, nowadays with these phones, I mean, there is this option of video recording and slow motion and all those things. And so I said, why not try it? And we had so much time during lockdown that we didn't know what to do with our time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started doing simple things like imagining, like, if I was a mouse, and so then how would I see the world? So I held the camera at floor level, and I started moving it, and all the furniture which was in my house looked overwhelming. They looked like buildings to me. I mean, through the camera. And it was a new way to looking at furniture. I mean, it was a new way of looking at a different world, which is actually my house. I'd never seen it from that level, but everything looked different. So uh, that was like a starting point for me to think that, oh, why not make another video, and why not come up with another idea? And that was another way of looking at things, and which made me, uh, it forced me to look at things in a different way. So probably there are many other techniques like these, but this one definitely helped me in looking at things differently.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, uh, yeah, being sort of constantly curious helps you innovate also. And I liked what you said in the beginning, because when like very good friend of mine, he said, you remember like how many phone numbers you remember today? I think hardly, right? Yours also you sometimes forget. It's just you have to
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
someone. Yeah. So the smartphones are making you less smarter. So I
Right.
think if you just keep them away for some time,
Yeah.
maybe the smartness is inbuilt. It will just like
Yeah.
थोड़ा थोड़ा गंज लगा रहेगा maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Um, so Sachin, I was very fortunate to interview BV Doshi, and I recently saw one more video of him where he said, "Are you again seeing things as you see, or are you seeing something more than what it is? And obviously, when he speaks, he goes very philosophical
Right.
and spiritual.
Right.
But if you can give your learnings, or share your learnings about how to go beyond the apparent, right? There are things,
Yeah.
but and if you look at them daily, they are mundane. They are
Right.
sort of. This is like, yeah, thoda sa
Yeah.
creative angle, but yeah, if you can,
Yeah.
how can one go beyond the apparent?
Yeah. Actually, it. I mean, just now I remembered. I mean, while you were asking, I mean, when I was small, I'd come across a book called "Learning to See." That was the title of the book, and it had all these abstract sketches and some photographs with minimum text. It was as if this book was meant for a child. With very simple text, nothing philosophical, anything heavy, and it basically spoke about things which you generally ignore. For example, it said that okay, different trees have different leaves and they are of different shapes. Each leaf is different depending on which tree it is, and they also have different shades of green. And when they dry, they turn into brown or yellow or whatever, and then they fall. And when they fall, they're all together. Imagine all the leaves have fallen down on the ground. And so all these shapes, they merge with each other, and all these colors, they also sort of complement each other. And then the whole thing looks like a painting. Uh, Now, at that time, I did not understand what the book was trying to reinforce. But I knew there was something about the book which I liked, and I did not know what it was, but I started copying the sketches or the shapes of the leaves which were they had shown, and I tried to copy them. But I kept that book with me in my cupboard, and it was there with me. I still have it, of course. And it was much later in life when I started my practice, and I found this book again, and I went through this book, and I realized that I was actually subconsciously following exactly what the book was trying to say. The book was actually helping me to look at things which we take for granted. We don't think much about these shapes of leaves and what the colors are and what will happen when they fall on the ground. And well, we just take it for granted. We just walk over them. So uh, that was very important, and it was helping me spot little things that made us feel or makes us feel happy. And that is what architecture is all about. One should feel happy and positive in a space you create. And so this is where the observation comes, and this is where probably books like these, I mean, they actually make you give a little hint and make you focus on these things and make you think differently or look at things differently. And this was very important. This is the most precious book I think I have with me right now. I mean, it just helped, and that's what exactly what probably Doshi is trying to say. And after going through such books, and then probably taking the next step of taking the initiative or taking the effort to look at things differently will obviously take you far, and you start seeing things which are not apparent to the eye.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. I think what I'm gathering right now so far is, I think you either you need some training
Yes.
to start observing the details, or then you have to be like really, as I said, passionately curious to keep digging till you find some substance. I think that's yeah, that's the pattern which is emerging.
Yeah, or maybe
So
an
so
interview like this. Maybe somebody will watch this interview and and look at the
yeah.
leaves.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So one side in design, I mean, design also, as you go deeper, there are like, and I'm sure there will be similar quotes and sayings by legendary people in architecture as well. But at least whatever I'm exposed to, we say that design is in the details, right? The devil is in the details. Design is in the details. And also on the other side, uh, we have this, I mean, always design knowing the user, larger context. I mean, the chair, famous, right? Chair in a house in a plan in a society, something like that.
yeah,
So, and now maybe we can connect this to Charles Correa, because you have worked like for 8 years with him. I'm sure it must be really enriching. So how do these people sort of manage to look at the micro and the macro so effortlessly, right? Because after 15 years, I have started using these words, right? You have to zoom in, do the pixel perfection, and then zoom out, look at the entire flow. But any trait or any particular characteristics of the personality or of the work that you witnessed, which gives this feeling कि yes, detail में भी है और बड़ा plan भी देख रहे कि saw, like Doshi used to say na, I used to walk and see how this building is going to be 100 years out. So
Yeah.
how can, like, any learnings there?
Uh, yeah, I mean, see, this was a wonderful quality which Charles had, where he could design a chair and think about the city at the same time, and there were so many other things he could manage effortlessly. And I was really fortunate to get a chance to work with him for, it was almost 18 years, actually. 8 years I worked
Oh,
with him, and then another 10 years went by while I was doing projects with him as an associate. So it was a very, very
awesome.
long time, and I was fortunate to, get this chance. Um, yeah, see, architecture is a very complicated form of art, and you have to depend on your observation and analyzing skills. And then you have to use logic and your aesthetic sense to design a building. So, in short, you're using both sides of your brain, and then apart from that comes the context where you have to, where the building is located. And that is also very important because you have, unless you study that properly, you will not be able to design a building. And like Charles used to say that, uh, a building is not a sculpture, it is meant for human habitation. So it has a purpose. So you cannot just design a building. You need to understand where it is located, what are the requirements of your client, and take up everything and collect everything. And then imagine that these are all your requirements. If you're designing a house for your friend or a client, you take up his requirement and then imagine that this is your house, and then how would you design? Once you start thinking like that, that means you'll give your best shot, right? Because it's now your house. So
Yeah.
uh, so you take that, and then the way to design this is to design from whole to part, in the sense that you have to look at the bigger picture first and then zoom into the details, which are always at the back of your mind, but they surface only when required. And
True.
once
True.
that happens, then you can go back and forth very easily. I mean, like for example, there is a door when you're designing a, a plan, you're designing a building. Now, it's an important door, let's say, but you may not design the door right away. But when it comes to a stage where you have to design the door, you will start thinking about what the door is like, but you roughly know what the size is when you are doing the plan. And then you start detailing that door. And at that moment, if you feel, oh, there could be a better door, which could be even larger, then you go back to the plan and you see, oh, maybe I should have a larger opening and whether that will work. So you go back and forth while designing smaller things and larger things. But because you've started from whole to part, I mean, it becomes much, much easier to change things because the bigger picture is in place. It's not that it will, by changing the size of the door, the whole plan will collapse or something. So that doesn't happen because you've started the other way around. And that is the way to design. And I remember Charles that told me, in my first day in office, uh, I had a different approach to designing because, I mean, like I said, you don't learn much in college. So I started from one side and I thought I'll finish it, you know, uh, and when I reach the other side, the whole building will get designed accordingly. And then he said, "You're not a signboard painter that you start from one side and you go to the other side. You have to see that what is the size of the board and then think, oh, what size, what will be the size of the letters which fit in and all." So I said, "Oh my God!" First day, I mean, I had made a mess of, but it was something which I learned very fast and which I learned from him. And so there were many such incidences like that. But yeah, but he was amazing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I would say he's one of the best architects we've ever had, and there's so much to learn from his work. I mean, even if you go through his book, I mean, there's so much to learn. I mean,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I'm going to ask you like a little bit off script question, because this has been my personal, um, I would say, struggle or challenge. Is that when you look at that door, and when you go back and zoom out and look at the whole plan and you do this shuttling, it takes time, right? Now, as an architect, uh, you are pressed for time, you are pressed with resources, you are pressed with money. All these aspects are there. So how used to, like, how did they manage this? Like, just hang on. It will be very good. It will be very long life, but it will take time. How do you used to negotiate with the clients or with, like,
Yeah.
love?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You see,
amazing.
when you do something with passion, I mean, uh, you can demand the time you require, and people understand when you're doing something with passion. I mean, if you need the time, of course, you need to stick to deadlines, and those deadlines are very important. But if there is a need and you think, oh my God, I have thought of a new idea, and the whole design needs to change, and I need another month for this, and you tell your client, look, I have thought of something good. And see, buildings are not temporary. They're not like fashion or something. It's going to stay there for the next 100 years, like Doshi said. So one mistake or any mistake we make, I mean, it's going to remain there for the next 100 years. So it's best that we give them, the most perfect building. And if you think that this extra time is going to help me to give you something better, uh, I'm sure they will be convinced, and they'll say, okay, take whatever you need, but at least I'll have a good building, and that is why they have come to you. But there's another way of designing, I would say, which I think I should mention this to you, because uh, we did spend a lot of time when we were working in Charles Correa's office. Almost we started 9 in the morning and used to work till like 10 or 11 in the night many a times, which I thought was not really necessary, in the sense that probably we were doing something wrong. We were probably going in circles or whatever. And so when I started my own practice, I decided that I will shut my office at 6. So I'm not going to work till 10 or 11, because for whatever reason. I mean, it's not worth it, because after a certain time, your mind is so tired, and you can't perform. I mean, it doesn't work that way. So, but if you keep, uh, if you maintain a certain simplicity in your design, it not only helps you in producing great work, but it definitely takes lesser time. And because the things are simple, I mean, you can think of a lot more things which are eventually going to be added to your design. Like, for example, you have columns and beams. You have other services like plumbing, you have electricals, you have air conditioning. All those pipes and all those things have to be merged with your design, and then everything has to look nice at the end of the day. I mean, you can't expect some pipe to be seen or a column in the middle of your room. So the way I work or try to work is that right from the first stage of design, like which we call as sketch design stage, uh, we I keep everything at the back of my mind. When I draw a room, I know where the columns are. I know where the beams are going to be. If I have the toilets, I know how the plumbing is going to be. So right from the first sketch, I keep all these things at the back of my mind while designing. It's not something which is added later on, you know. And so basically, how on the computer you have these folders. You can make multiple folders and you keep them inside one big folder. All these folders, brain also works like that. You have all these folders at the back of your mind, and you pull them out whenever there is need for it. So when you're designing, okay, I know where the columns are, but when there's a time to design those columns, you mark them on the drawing, because they're always there at the back of. You open that folder and you know where the columns are. You open your plumbing folder and you know where the now I'm talking about the mind. Okay, all this is in the mind while designing. So we save a lot of time by you know by thinking about all these things right from sketch design stage, because if they're added later on, then there's a big struggle, because then you see things where you don't want them to be there, and it is also not fair for the engineers to do something because you haven't designed properly. I mean, there you can. I mean, it's not nice to say that, oh, I don't want a column here because I have a big window here, or I have a corner window here and all that. And unless that window is extremely important and it's changing the entire feel or look of it. But otherwise, just because you have done something and you did not know how to resolve his problem, it doesn't mean that he has to solve it for you. It's best that you solve it yourself and then give it to him. So um, uh, we may not know the details of what the column, what the reinforcement is like, but we should at least know where the column is located, or eventually there's a column which is going to come here. It's not going to float just like that. So there, I mean, we have to think about ground reality also. So that saves a lot of time, and we have never had a problem of, you know, like did not have we did not request for extra time, and we have managed to stick within the timelines. When you actually think like this in totality, that is very important. You think in totality, and you will, breeze through.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are two schools again. Recently, I interviewed Rajat Kapoor, the
Mm.
filmmaker,
Yeah.
and the actor, and the theater person. Not the Rajit, but the Rajat Kapoor, the Aankhon Dekhi wala. And I think similar schools in filmmaking also. One is where he is evolving, experimenting, and doing stuff on the set. So there is a broad framework, there's a broad storyline, there's a script, but when the camera rolls, he just like lets the actor do whatever they want, right? And there is chaos, there's some truth to it, but yeah, typically it will go on and on, work late night, and I
Yeah.
think the Korea Korea model would be like that.
Mm.
And then the other school which I discussed with him is the Satyajit Ray or the Alfred Hitchcock school, where every shot is detailed. Like he just quoted Alfred Hitchcock's line. In fact, he said, "Oh, I have the entire film ready. I just need to shoot." So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean similar
Yeah.
patterns here where you have detailed it till the exact
Yes.
final window and everything, and there's no, so you
Yes.
spend that pre-production time
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
then get
Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. Cool. So yeah, this one last question, just to conclude this podcast, is as in this episode, is you'll be judging the work of undergrad students at the drawing board, and they are supposed to design Charles Correa Memorial. And I think you'd be like one of the important person worked so closely with him. So how would you judge? Like any tips for students, any learnings about his life or architecture that you want to share, which will inspire, which will, I'm sure like students are working day in day out, but थोड़ा सा personal level पे या professional level पे whatever you would like to share about him, and obviously your judging criteria if you want to disclose.
Well, I mean, designing a memorial for Charles is not easy. I mean, and maybe Charles would have never liked a memorial in his name. But anyway, since it's a competition, I mean, I would say that the only way you can design a memorial for Charles Correa is by understanding his work, And the only way to understand his work is to visit any of his projects and spend some time there. I mean, just go there, sit and look around, you know. And basically, what I'm trying to say is you need to experience his work. I mean, you don't go to the books and all. I mean, just go to any project, just sit there and look around, feel it, and experience it. And probably that will help you in designing a memorial for Charles. And judging, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how am I going to, judge it. But I know one thing for sure, that when I see a good proposal, I mean, I will know this is the one.
Beautiful. And any yeah, it's tough to sort of connect or articulate, but any personality traits which you have seen in Charles Correa, which gave you a glimpse कि अरे हाँ अच्छा, this is what he's trying to do here, anything like that, just as a concluding thought.
Um, See, the only thing I actually remember about him, which is very evident, is also, I mean, is that whatever he did, was very simple, very down to earth. I mean, he never tried to do things which were just to shock people, or something to stand out. He believed in uh, he believed in scale, he believed in the proportions, and he believed in the positive effect his buildings are bringing in. So, and all his efforts were into that. And he was talking about how a person would use a space. Whenever he used to design, he used to talk a lot. And then he used to say, "Oh, a person will go here. Maybe he'll sit here. Maybe we should provide a bench here, or maybe we should do this. A terrace. If there was a terrace, he used to draw a tree there, and imagine that maybe there'll be a tree here one day. Many a times the tree never happened, but he used to like drawing trees on the terraces and all that. So it was like gardens at different levels and all the time he was talking and imagining how a person would enjoy that space, and that reflected in his work. I mean, always you whenever you walk into his buildings, I mean, there is something which touches your heart, and like this is what Le Corbusier had also said once, that you build buildings and palaces using stone and whatnot, but at the end of the day, when something touches your heart, and you say, "Wow, that is architecture,"
Wow.
not what you see. You should feel
Beautiful.
it, and I suppose, I mean, I'll add to that that is the time when you actually start seeing the soul of the building, and most of the times the soul is seen when the building is pure. I mean, when it's too complex and trying to do too many things, I mean, that soul is completely lost and you don't see it. But uh, when it is very much truthful and simple, I mean, you immediately see the soul, and you can feel it, you can experience it and feel it in your heart.
Yeah, very beautiful. Cool. I think this is a good note to end this. Thanks a lot, Sachin, for giving your time. It was really wonderful talking to you.
Same here. It was wonderful talking to you too. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, so thanks. Thanks for listening till the end. Again, a quick note, the drawing board brings you a competition for undergrad architect students who can submit their project ideas on the theme of designing a memorial for Charles Correa. Last date to submit your concepts is 1st October 2022. More details in the show notes and thedrawingboard.in. Thanks and all the best. Bye. And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at Audiogyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunyavan, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nuttigrities. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. Appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week. Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks guys, without you this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.